please help me welcome Fable to the Creative Mornings stage.
Cool. Thank you very, 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 very much. How are y'all doing this morning? So I like energy and I like a lot of noise. So I would definitely appreciate that, especially because I know that this is like a heavy topic. So you're like, why would I have energy or noise? Because sometimes it's like good to like yell through the healing process, right? So when I ask how are y'all doing this morning, I want everybody just to get like really, 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 really loud, and everybody will be awake and everybody will be ready for this pretty emotional session that we're going to dive into. Hopefully it'll be uplifting as well, but I know it's definitely going to climb through the feels. So let's try this again. How are y'all doing this morning? That is what I'm talking about. So my name, as you heard, is Fable, or Marcel Price, the new poet laureate of the city of Grand Rapids. And I'm going to take you guys on a little story about how death kind of opened my eyes to a lot of things. Is there anybody in this room who has recently lost somebody, a loved one, a grandparent, a parent, anything? A couple of you, 3 of you. So I've never really known what it is to deal with death until, I want to say it was like 2 years ago, roughly now. I've had friends, people in my high school were shot and killed, like that I saw all the time, but I've never like had a friend or somebody close to me that passed. And 2 years ago, my grandfather passed away. I was raised in a single-parent household by an incredible, incredible, incredible mother. I tell a lot of stories about my mom because she is like that ideal single parent. She worked like 3 jobs, put Payless shoes on my feet, which is like phenomenal for a single parent because I used to hate it, but I realized over time that that is a fantastic thing. And hand-me-down clothes on my back, and constantly had a roof over our head, even though we were constantly transitioning and moving. But because my mom was working 3 jobs, a majority of my life I was raised by my grandparents. Every single weekend, every single vacation, and multiple days during the week, my grandparents would stay at our house, or they would take me, and I would go back and forth and back and forth. And I feel like that moving, that bouncing around is a theme that stayed pretty consistent through my life. I used to bounce between Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo. I helped organize a huge, huge show out there that was like poetry, acoustic arts. And in Grand Rapids, we have a show every Monday at Stella's Lounge. And it was kind of like that same show where it's like just performance art and live music. And it used to be very, 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 very rooted in drinking and turning up. Because that's what we thought was a great idea to create an art scene around. And then I realized over time, like, maybe we should just tune it down a little bit. But one week, I was coming from Kalamazoo, from Grand Rapids to Kalamazoo, and I got a call from my mom. And she says, Marcel, are you sitting down? And I was like, no, I'm in a car. Like, you're being ridiculous, because my mom is never serious. And she's like, well, you might want to like pull over or something. And I was like, all right. So I did. I was like, what's going on? And she's like, hospice has been with your grandfather for the last couple weeks. So I'm driving up right now from Kentucky, and we got to go see him. And immediately my heart starts beating real fast. I'm like, oh, I never felt this before. Like, this isn't good. And she's like, just go to your house and wait for me. I'll pick you up. So I'm trying not to cry. And I get to Kalamazoo. And my roommate at the time, a guy named Mitch, who used to be a member of the Diatribe, calls me and he's like, hey man, I just want to let you know that I took your luggage. Me and the girlfriend went to Colorado. And I think to myself, like, strike one. He took my luggage without asking. Because that's the way you look at roommates, and that's the type of shit that roommates do when you're in your 20s. They just like take your shit without asking. But like, I was like, you picked the wrong day. So I'm like sending him this angry text message like, oh, how dare you take my stuff? And I know what's sparking this, but of course, me being one of those men that was raised in an environment of like not talking about your feelings, I'm just like, oh, da, 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 so angry at him. And that starts this. Microphone might be dying. That starts this like spiral of feelings. And I walk upstairs and I'm like, all right, I just need to lay down for a while. And I go upstairs and on my bed there's a card. And I'm like, maybe I shouldn't be so mean to him if he got me a card. And I open up this card and it says, I'll always believe in you. Good luck on your journey. Love, Grandpa. And something in my mind snapped. And immediately I got irate, like furious. And I took a picture off a wall and threw it into the wall and started hitting the wall and screaming and yelling. And I went downstairs and I went out on my porch and I'm smoking a cigarette and I'm just livid because I can't explain it. And I call my mom and I'm like, Mom, you're never gonna believe this, but there's a card from Grandpa on my bed. And she's like, Marcel, breathe. And she can hear the shaking in my voice. I'm like, I don't really feel like breathing right now. Like, you don't understand, like it's a card from him. And she's like from him? And I'm like, yeah, it's a card from him on my bed right now. And she's like, Marcel, there's some things that we can't always understand. And there's some things that can't be explained. And now I've never been a person of faith. So I'm like, no, you can't explain everything. This isn't something I can explain. So I start to cry even more. And I'm walking through my house and I'm screaming and I'm mad and I can't breathe. And my chest continues just to get tighter and tighter and tighter and tighter. I keep calling my mom and she keeps answering. She's like, I'm on my way, babe. I'm on my way. I'm on my way. I'm on my way. But I just know that like I keep going through my head and like for some reason I stop and I'm like, man, I gotta start repenting for all the wrong things that I've done. Because if this is some sign from the aboves, then like, I've done a lot of wrong. So I like start like praying, even though I've never been religious. I continue to not be able to breathe, and I'm just going through all these emotions that I can't describe, and I just keep getting more confused and more angry. An hour and a half later, my mom gets there and she walks in the house and she just sees me on the floor crying my eyes out. And she's like, come on, Marcel, we gotta go. And I'm just like, I don't know if I wanna go. But she gets me in the car and she starts driving, and for the hour it takes us to get to Greenville, Michigan, I'm sobbing. And we get inside my grandma's house and my grandma goes, oof, you've looked better before. Because that's the way my family is. And I just want to say something mean, but I understand that her husband is on his deathbed in the other room, so I'm like, all right, I'm going to let you get that one in. But she goes, hey, the nurse handed me this, and it helped me a lot. And for anybody that's ever had hospice in a loved one's home, they hand you this little book that says the process of death. And my grandmother puts this in my hand, and she's like, you should read this. And I open it, and it starts talking about what your body does when it starts to shut down and you die. And that book is not what you should be reading if you're not in a good place. That book is horrible. It's a horrible, morbid, in detail description of what your body is doing weeks and months when you know you're going to die. And I get so angry when she hands me this, and I'm like, you read this trash? And she's like all offended, and my mom starts to read it and she's like, this is horrible, like why would you give this to him? But I continue to cry, and I like try not to get mad because I understand that this is my mother's father, this is my grandmother's husband, so like they are feeling this just as much as I am. But they're like, you should go talk to him. And they take me in the living room next to the couch that he's always slept on throughout my entire knowing him. But there's a bed now instead of this couch. And he's just laying there, and you can see his chest moving up and down. but his eyes aren't open and he's not responding. And I'm just sitting there sobbing, looking at him. And they're like, he can hear you talk. So I sit there for like probably 10 minutes thinking of what I'm gonna say. I'm like, well, I should probably start apologizing. Although I was raised by my grandparents, I hadn't probably seen them more than 5 times in like a 2-year span. My grandfather was diagnosed with having Alzheimer's disease. And I didn't want to see him and remember him being any less than the person that I grew up with. So I refused to go over there, especially when I was told that his memory started to slip. So I started apologizing about that. I was like, I want to let you know that the reason that I didn't come around, it wasn't your fault. And that you were everything of a father that I could have ever asked for. You taught me how to love. You taught me how to be patient. And you didn't deserve me not coming around. And if I had a time machine, I promised that I would do it all over again. But I want to let you know that I appreciate you quitting drinking when I was born to be a better you. And I appreciate you taking all the time with me to teach me like what it is to be a stable human being. And continued to talk and just cried my eyes out. And as soon as I was done, his chest stops moving. And then all those unexplainable feelings from seeing that card continue to come in, and I just am sitting there angry and crying. I probably look like a little kid in the store that like didn't get a toy or something. I'm just sitting there sobbing. And my mom is like, I feel like he needed that because that's what got him to let go. And my grandma was like, I hope that like shows you something about like how much he cared about you. But at the end of the day, I just felt bad for not being there. For 2-3 years of not showing up. And being selfish about my not showing up. Because it was 100% rooted in what was best for me. And sometimes we look at self-care like, this is what we need to do, what's best for us, but we don't think about everybody around us and what is best for those people around us. And sometimes we're not kind enough with our love. I posted on Facebook that he passed away and a bunch of people reached out to me. But one of the first people that reached out to me was my roommate. And he was like, hey man, I'm really, really sorry to hear about your grandpa. But that card I found in your luggage showed how much he cared about you. And apparently that card was in luggage that they gifted me when I graduated. And he took it out because he saw it in there and put it on my bed. And as a realistic human being, that made me feel significantly better because I could explain it now. And I didn't just think that there's some powers that be in the sky that were trying to make me have this come to Jesus moment. But then I realized too that you can call it faith, you can believe in whatever you want to believe in. But some things just happen the way that they're meant to happen, however we want them to or not. And we can't explain it all the time, and it doesn't mean that some powers that be are orchestrating that. But we do have to understand that there's a method and a meaning to everything. And at the end of the day, we should really just pull close those people who we love and who we appreciate and give them the time and the energy that they deserve. And continue to do that as much as we can before we regret it and they're not there anymore. And I wrote this poem to my grandpa, and unfortunately, he never got to hear it. But you will. So he's teaching me to shoot in Greenville, Michigan. And he said, aim. Take a deep breath. Let the air fill your lungs with life. Hold it for a moment. Let only half of it out. Focus. And slowly squeeze the trigger. Granddad, you will never hear this poem. You will never feel this thank you caressing your eardrums, turning well-weathered spine, clasping your ribs with a death grip, like that final hug goodbye with the final you, signifying the bipolar smile of a boy that was taught to love like a gunshot. Take aim. Focus. When in a relationship with someone with bipolar disorder, it is key to remember, yet so easy to forget, that the letter U, refrigerator magnet, can also effortlessly be substituted with a lowercase n. And better yet, with the assistance of periods, which can also be substituted with the dots of two lowercase i's, it can all be used to erect a face. Looking at you, displaying a mood you may not have intended to create, to my dearest grandmother, you, smiling, taught me how to love. And flip it, even when frowning, you still taught me how to love, so flip it, you are also why I hate them. Them being my overly constricting genes, not denim but genetic, yet still blue in the kisser from holding their secrets like breath. Making me want to trickle crimson from their zipper locketaways, mentally screaming, stop! Every time I heard them prematurely talk about my granddad. As if he'd already replaced that overly used couch, broken into perfection, for ready to be broken in casket to finally be rested in. As I'm well nestled in the memories, still comfort blanketing my mental from seeing him magician my grandmother's frown into blissful happiness, as if his fingertip was a magic wand and her lips simply as easy to alter as an alphabet magnet alone in, always waiting for the you, magic man, to turn it around. Is that what would instill the memory of him to be everlasting? Not focusing on the eyes, I could never see his gaze sunsetting over the years, only picturing eyes creating smiles from watching him rope swing, uppercasing smiles on our faces through all of life's up and downs. He capitalized eyes, not focusing on the dots, but yet he still cultivated a pupil or two, young Houdinis, focused on creating smiles from, and he'd always turn it around when we needed it most. But now I find it so hard to keep wanting, striving, working towards being you, that at times I just want to stay unprepared for that funeral tidal wake of memories, with my you being shattered into a past of window pane, rearview mirroring my smiles, and my grandmother being greatly concerned, inquiring if the reason I now pushed away women was because of her or because of my family, because I could only smile for so long before I say, well, yeah. I can hear you all forgetting him. Is that love? Is that what we strive a lifetime for? The until death do you part's true meaning. Becoming skinny jeans, seeing vows turning into a lifestyle, turning into just another trend, making jeans with a G that much easier to rip at a pair of seams. I think they symbolize my loved ones. Hold it, see, I'm only letting half of it out, half of us now realize that bipolar and depression genetically run in our family, but so does pushing people away. Through life, we have shoved pills into gaps, into these little empty pockets of ourselves, but how many capsules does it take to truly feel regrets? And why use that when you can get your hands dirty by getting to the bottom of yourself for others and ripping it apart? I smile When I remember my granddad teaching me to love over a Remington pump action 30-30 rifle, he'd say, aim. Let the air fill your lungs with life. When I now slowly pull the trigger on my decisions, especially in regards to love, I remember how his loved ones treated him, like a quickly fading memory. A bullet so easy to push away and let that boom resonate over eardrums passed down that should have felt me saying thank you a long time ago. I will vow to treat my child like the biological dad I never had. See, granddad, you taught me how to love. And flip it, even when frowning, he still taught me how to love. So granddad, you will never hear this poem. You will never feel this thank you caressing your eardrums, turning well-weathered spine, clasping your ribs with a death grip like that final hug goodbye. For I promise, before time fades and your grandson is setting into black, I will thank you, Magic Man, for teaching me how to perform life's hardest trick, to love the right way, unconditionally, before it's boom, gone. Thank you guys very much. So I'm gonna start this video before we dive into a Q&A. But I'll tell you a little bit about the poem that you're gonna hear. This video hasn't seen the light of day yet. I think I only showed it at my Poet Laureate induction ceremony. But if you didn't catch the theme that I strongly believe in is pulling people in and showering them in all the love that you can afford to give them. I feel like a lot of the things, especially in the media now, that we see are divisive. And it makes everybody draw a line in the sand and say you're either on this side or you're on this side. And I see it push friends apart and communities apart and workplaces apart. But one thing that I very, very, very much believe in is finding the commonalities that you have with people, right? The deeper personal connections, the things that you have in common, and connecting on those things. Because those are the things that are gonna keep a lot of us together. And even though many of us come from different backgrounds and different home lives, those little things that we can latch on to emotionally keep us rooted and make our beliefs what they are. This next poem you're gonna hear is a major part of my life story. I grew up in a pretty traumatic household. I grew up with a stepdad who had a drinking problem and has put his hands on me a lot growing up. So a major part of my life growing up, I thought that alcohol was the way to solve your problems, because it's like there's a liquor store in every corner and this adult puts his hands on me and drinks, so it's like maybe that's the outlet. And it took me a long time to realize that that's not the positive way to handle what you're going through. At age 14, when I was going through this, I was also diagnosed with anxiety, bipolar, and depression. So for a major part of my life, I grew up not feeling safe at home and not feeling safe in my own skin. And for a while, it made me a very, very toxic human being. And now I see that like it's important to come out of that and to be able to change your stars and to be able to change all those things. And coming from like feeling worthless and like your surroundings showing you're worthless to being like a poet laureate of a city, right? And that's really what a lot of this poem is about, is it's addressing issues with mental health and growing up in toxic environment and showing that you can change your stars. But after this, we'll dive into that Q&A.
This is for the ones that are labeled. Don't let that change anything that you feel about yourself. Don't mind me. Don't mind me, because this one is meant to be quiet. Said doctors about the child stillborn, moving. Said factors of the lifestyle I still live, yet soothing me more than the antidepressants, because isn't it depressing how life works sometimes, yet isn't it refreshing how life works sometimes? I'm sorry. I guess that's the bipolar. When you can go from your childhood theme song matching Saturday morning cartoons and understanding why you love ninjas, pizza, and turtles to not understanding why life's hurdles seem to match Berlin walls as you crumble to pharmaceutical commercials because the jingle over the symptoms match the dinner bell. And you're starving to feel normal. Your own arm always looks a little bit more appetizing when you feel trapped, so smother that. Nah, where's the salt? Because I know one of you is willing to throw it, and I may have open wounds that won't heal soon, so if you are going to throw it, could you please pass the paper shake? It is normal to eat 3 meals a day, and this would make a great 1, but do you suffer from bulimia if you're coughing up your differences instead of meals? What's normal? Sometimes when I reminisce, I get sad. Is that depression? Should life lessons be forget that stepdad 1 tried to fight me every day because a pill will fix that? Erase the memory of my grandfather figure, trying to figure out why I can't bear to see him change with time. As I was told through Alzheimer's disease, he might forget me anyway. This one time, I thought about killing myself. That's not normal. What's normal? I hear the symptoms are having both parents happy and functional. Functional being what you see is actually what you get, and those skeletons, if there are skeletons, will be safely swept under the rug, out of sight, out of the mind, as if the blind are happier people. Happy. That's normal. And not bottling that you won't, because you can't, because you are too to do it, and I wish they never, so I never felt not normal. You shouldn't bottle unless it's prescribed. It's not normal. Well, neither is my disorder, apparently, and for some scary reason, I'm labeled a 25 percentile child in the world. Isn't bipolar, then I ask, why does the globe have 2? And I have to think that my emotion percent is more relevant than my race, because face it, with the globe being 20% black, 10% Hispanic, 12% biracial, unfortunately equally beta my emotion disorder in the order of issue, get a tissue, race, because face it, I'm a minority anyway. A 25% of a 12% leave me feeling roughly 3% normal, but this is for the paper shakers, the ones whose hands match leaves and fall at an open mic but don't because they aren't normal. Praise it. Using crowds' ears like medication because it's cheaper. Face it, the only insurance we need is people showing us, hey, someone is willing to listen. Genuinely listen, even if it's us. This once, hold your phone, but not the applause, and look in awe at the people here brave enough to feel normal, just trying to feel normal. My little brother was named after the prior who was stillborn, but he is moving through life as a reminder to me that being still is not what we are born, and life can suck, but duck the punch and suck it up. But don't suck a punch the ones lucky enough to find their passion and their sanity. Dot pen, script paper, chasing their eating disorders by feeling sorta normal. Have you ever contemplated suicide? Do you ever get depressed? Why at times does it feel like there's nothing left, but there is everything? The same reason people pay no attention to art, but paint, pay to record, but tune everybody else out. Find out the world's north and south poles are milestones, and appreciate them no matter what you have, because sometimes you will be the only one who will. The only one. And there's not a pill to fix that. That's a fact. It's a fact. That's a fact. It's a fact. Don't mind me. Don't mind us. It's fine. Yeah. So thank you all very, very, very much. That video was made in collaboration with Kendall College. They got a bunch of students together, like I said, from very, very different backgrounds and different walks of life, and they all helped me bring that poem to life. If you do want to hear more, I have CDs in the back. I have stickers, my personal stickers, and also ones that are for our nonprofit. We use poetry as a way to get youth to talk about the things that they're going through. Not trying to create the generation, like the world's next dynamic poets, but just creating individuals who will own their story and what they've been through and start talking about it. So if you want any of that information, stickers are back there. They're free. Please take one. Yeah, and I have CDs if you would like to buy them. Or you can hear it on Spotify and Pandora as well. But supporting artists financially is important, so I appreciate if you do. But yeah, thank you guys very, very, very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. time for questions. We have a time for a couple of questions, and I'll start. So with kind of the first story that you told us, and then the poem, that's really heavy, right? So what's typically kind of like the time frame for you to go through something, and then like, when then do you turn it into a piece? Is it just kind of like it hits you depending on the subject matter, the time, or did it take a little bit of time to get to the point where you wrote that poem?
Yeah, I don't think there's any like set time of like this is the amount of time that you need as a human being. I think however much time it takes you to grieve and process what you're going through, be it a week, a month, a year, 3 years, 4 years, whatever. I feel like once you lose somebody that's a major part of you, you're gonna always be grieving. And whenever you get to the point of where you can let it out and not feel like you're violating yourself or doing anything that's too damaging or risky to yourself, then that's the time that you let it out. But I definitely believe in always talking about the things that you're going through and that you've been through, because that's how you reduce the stigma on a lot of these things, be it grief, be it mental health, to just constantly talk and dialogue. And it makes great conversation, even though it's like sad, than like that filler weird conversation that we constantly throw at each other. And then it's real and you can actually like connect, like I said, on a deeper level than just the surface level BS.
Hold on.
How did you first start to learn to want to express yourself through poetry? Like, what initially got you?
I was failing high school English, bad. And an English teacher made a deal with me to turn in a piece of creative writing every day. And if I did, she would pass me. So I did, and it was short stories, lyrics, songs, just a bunch of different stuff. And she was like, have you ever thought about being a writer? And I was like, no, I thought about not getting grounded, which is why I turned in this work. And she sent me to a writer's camp at the University of Michigan. It was ran by the Ann Arbor Poetry Slam team. And they showed me that poetry could kind of be whatever I wanted it to be. And if I wanted to dive in a form, I can dive in a form. If I want to make work for the page, I can make work for the page. If I want to make it to be told in story forms, I can do that. And then to push myself and just constantly try all these things all the time. And that's how I fell in love with it. Yeah. Any other questions? No? Thank you guys very, very much for coming out. Thank you for supporting Creative Mornings. Thank you for coming and listening to me cry and talk. I know that is a rough start to your day. But if you have lost somebody or know somebody who has lost somebody recently, just reach out to them and love on them really, really hard. And if you have family members that you've been pushing away, pull them close before you lose that time. Because the last thing you want is to push a family member away, a friend away, or a loved one, and something happen, because life always does happen, and then you not be able to tell them how much you did appreciate them or you did love the good times. So yeah, if you want a little homework assignment to take away, do that. Thank you guys.